historical building is to be reconstructed in the Łomnica Palace Park. Here this isn't an unusual occurrence, but this time it involves a former Protestant church, a so-called prayer house, which previously stood at a different location. In Łomnica, a bright future awaits. It will become a meeting place. So what happened? This prayer house stood in the village of Rząśnik, formerly Schönwaldau. Falling into disuse, it served for decades as a warehouse until finally it became a ruin. The owner needed to build a barn on the lot. The fate of the prayer house seemed sealed. The demolition permit was issued for the summer of 2008. However, in Łomnica, where the rescuing of monuments has become a tradition, an initiative to save it was rapidly launched.
Surely one person wouldn't be able to do it. Even we understand that. That's why we've asked a lot of people. And everyone said, yes, you have our support. So now we work together on the reconstruction.
But what precisely was to be saved? Here we must delve into history. From 1523, the Reformation spread throughout Silesia and two faiths established themselves as an outcome. With the new doctrine, the Silesian Protestants took their stance against not only the Catholic Church, but also the King and Emperor of the House of Habsburg. In the name of faith, a ravaging 30-year war was waged. In Silesia, following the war, the Counter-Reformation resulted in the confiscation of churches in many parts of the country, and Protestants and ministers were forced into exile. In the Duchy of Świdnica, to which Jelenia Góra also belonged, there were soon only 3 Protestant churches left: the Churches of Peace in Świdnica and Jawor, and the Grace Church in Jelenia Góra. The Protestant Christians from Rząśnik no longer had a church or a minister. In spite of this, they stood firmly by their faith and endured much repression. For this reason, when King Frederick II marched in 1740 with his army into Silesia, he was greeted as a liberator. Very quickly, the inhabitants of Rząśnik sent a delegation to the king asking for permission to establish a community and to build a Protestant house of God. They had to wait for 1 year before construction could begin. The building had to be made from wood and clay without a bell tower, and it was not to be called a church because the king didn't want to antagonize the Catholics. In 1748, it was consecrated as the prayer house in Rząśnik. In a short time, Silesia saw the appearance of 212 such churches. In the district of Jelenia Góra alone, there were 32 places where Catholic Church stood side by side with a Protestant one, a very rare phenomenon in Europe at that time. Very soon, there was recognition of the Silesian tolerance. To this day, the prayer houses are considered special. With time, they have impressed their presence on the Lower Silesian landscape as an integral feature. Over the years, many of these makeshift buildings were replaced with stone churches. In the aftermath of World War II, new Polish inhabitants arrived in Lower Silesia. They were almost exclusively Catholic. Of the unneeded Protestant churches, some would be turned into Catholic ones, while others were destined for different purposes. However, many of them would fall into ruin and were eventually demolished. Soon only one timber-framed prayer house remained in the whole province of Lower Silesia, the one in Rząśnik. let's return to the present time. It soon became clear that it wasn't an original building. In 1919, the little Baroque church was destroyed by lightning. The community, with great abstemiousness, met the cost of rebuilding it in the following years. On the advice of the future regional conservator, the building was reconstructed as a typical Silesian timber-framed prayer house. This indeed made the story of the prayer house interesting. Because there was no place for the church in the village, another location had to be found. Łomnica was the obvious choice. In the summer of 2008, the salvaging process was undertaken. A structural survey was executed, the plans were drawn, and one by one, all of the timbers were numbered. Professionals from Poland and Germany began removing the roof, which was beyond recovery, and uncovering and dismantling the timber framing. The windows were taken out, the stones restored and cleaned, and even pieces of historical plaster were retained as samples for future reconstruction.
Tak, to jest trochę szaleństwo.
Yes, it is a kind of madness. But when we started the renovation of the ruined palace in Łomnica, we asked many people for help. They thought, oh, these people, it's pure madness. But they helped anyway, and now these friends say, it's good that you were so crazy. So the same principle, the same naivety as 20 years ago in Łomnica, we apply to the reconstruction of the prayer house. We start to work, we look for people who want to support us, and we know that together we have the power to achieve our common goal, the reconstruction of the prayer house.
Bit by bit, the individual elements were moved to Łomnica and stored there.
Błogosławiony człowiek, co się tak sprawuje, że wrażeniem pobożnych ludzi nie zstępuje. Swobodnie grzeszącymi nigdy nie odsuzuje. Na śmiewców się spraw boskich stolicę wiaruje.
At the beginning of April 2011, it became possible to lay the cornerstone in the Łomnica Palace Park. Visitors came from near and far, including representatives of both the Protestant and the Catholic churches in Poland. Everyone expressed their wishes for the success of the venture, and all were happy to have a new place to conduct ecumenical services, cultural events and gatherings. Very soon, the foundations will be laid and the timber framing reconstructed. The first donations make this possible. However, great challenges still lie ahead and a lot of financial support is needed for a new roof, walls, renovation of windows and doors, new indoor galleries, a pulpit, benches, possibly an exhibition as well. How can such a dream be realised? As always, in Łomnica, with the help of all of those who want to make something happen. Everyone can have their input.